Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be having a theory crafting session with a good friend of mine. He has his own YouTube channel, Apocolyptic Gaming, and introduce yourself.
What's going on? I'm Drew from Apocalyptic Gaming Crew. Follow me at on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation as Apocalyptic Drew. And I pretty much just do a bunch of casual gaming, a couple hardcore games, but glad to be on the show here with Troy.
It's nice to have you here. Today's topic is going to be video game ideals such as genre, mechanics, combat, customization, story, and endgame, and what does all of this mean for replayability. Now, as far as, ideals go, what do you think would be your ideal game? Like, just a quick little general, description.
I like a game that's got a lot of story, but it has to have enough action to keep you interested, not just dragging you on with a complex story that doesn't keep you. It's got to have a good flow. It's got to be action-packed. It's got to be linear enough to where you feel like you want to continue going into the story, but not too linear to where you just feel like you're running in a maze as a rat. You want some openness to it.
So
A good
you're talking about,
example
like,
would be the
stuff
Witcher
like,
series.
So you're talking like, some of the Final Fantasy games, some of the more open ones, right? Something like that?
Kind of. Like a really good example would be the Witcher series, or like Horizon Zero Dawn. I really liked Horizon Zero Dawn because it had just enough story, linearness to make you like, okay, you have to go do this mission, you have to go do, but it's not like you have to do it right now. It's like you choose to go do it here or there, but it kind of makes you, like, with as much action that's going on, like, oh well, let me go do the next mission because I want to see what happens next. So like a story that has just enough drive to keep you in the campaign, but also gives you the freedom to do what you want to do if you decide to deviate from the campaign temporarily. Something that most shooters don't give you.
Yeah, for me, story does play an important part of it. I like having a good story to go along with, but for me, like, the most important part of it is that I have to be able to customize a lot of things, like, be able to build my own thing. Like, for example, you know how Fallout is, right? To where you can, like, build your own bases and everything, and you can customize your guns. The thing is, though, it just wasn't enough for me. Like, I would like to be able to build my own, weapons, my own armor, stuff like that. And then Final Fantasy, has such a great, story. And then there's also the combat. It's to where, you basically grind and grind and grind and then fight the next boss, and then grind and grind and grind, fight the next boss. I wish that there could be more than that, like a way that you could decide how you're going to move the story forward, but just the best way to put out my ideal game out there, something that is open world, allows you to make your own stuff, and has like bases and resource management, like and not even a linear story, like a way that you're basically given objectives, and how you achieve those objectives is how you move the story forward. Best way to put it is, let's say you're in a war game and you have to beat the enemy. You can either just do a full-on assault, or you can flank them, or do diplomacy with another nation to defeat them. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could go about it. That's just like a simplification of the story, and how you can advance the story with gameplay instead of cutscenes and, like, specific interpersonal connections. That's just how I feel about it. You know, there are going to be some games that I like to play, like for example Final Fantasy, that have, you
Well, it
know,
always depends on what Final Fantasy, because
yeah,
long drawn cutscenes like 7 and 9, like
yeah, like the Knights of
they're
the Round, like with that, you know, Final Fantasy VII coming back out again. Let's hope that the Knights of the Round is just a little less short, you know, just a little bit. But
hmm
okay, let's go into genre now. As far as, you know,
Okay.
genre goes, like what do you think would be your ideal genre? Like what I'm talking about here is not a cookie cutter genre like, you know, single player RPG or any of these, like, you know, very basic ones like, you know, first person shooter and all that. What genre that you don't think is quite out there that you would like to see that would fit into your ideal?
I've always been a real big fan of platformers. I mean, I think one of the greatest platformers that's about to come out is that new Cuphead, and I honestly cannot wait until that comes out, because number one, it's a classic platformer. It's a co-op platformer, which is something you rarely see anymore, other than like maybe Little Big Planet or uh, like Mighty Number Nine, which turned out to be total crap. It was supposed to be like
Yeah, that was
Mega Man,
disappointing
and
even for
then
me,
it
and I didn't
just it
even know
just
about it.
died. Yep. But but no, I'm really excited to see this new Cuphead, because it's going in a direction that most video games have never gone to, and that's complete hand drawn animations. And not only that, but in the style of a 1930s cartoon. And that's what I really find interesting about it. And I'm hoping for it to be a completely audio driven uh, storyline, like where it's all based off of audio and visuals, and there's no scripting of words or anything. Because if they truly want to reach that 1930s, literally let the music drive the story. But being as it's 2017, I understand putting words in it to keep people entertained. But if they go for the whole thing, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Whenever I saw it, I was like, man, this looks like there's something so stylistically gratifying about watching the game just as they, you know, showed you test footage of you playing of the people playing it, and it was just so, like, you know, stylistically gratifying. Like you could actually see, you know, just an aspect of it that the whole thing was hand drawn, and you could control basically what would have been, you know, like Bugs Bunny on the screen. Like if Disney ever, you know, not Disney,
Yeah,
but
that's especially what it looks like, is like a Disney or a Chuck Jones cartoon or something like
exactly,
that.
like if that the people that own these games see how well this game does, and then they start to do this themselves, oh man, the sky is the limit to, you know, how much money they can make off of this, and on top of that, the entertainment value that they could bring to a genre like this. I mean, this right here is going to be revolutionary, and
hmm
that's why it's such a great ideal for a genre.
and
And
I think that releasing it as an arcade game rather than a full-fledged uh AAA title release, even though it's mainly backed by Microsoft Studios and whatnot, I think that one of the greatest things about it is that they're releasing it for only $20. Not only is it $20 if you buy it on Xbox, it's $20. You get it on Xbox, your cell phone, your PC. You get it as a Play Anywhere title, which is something new that Microsoft started, that Sony's been trying to catch up with their. If you purchase it for PlayStation 4, you get the PS3 copy. Um, but Microsoft's been doing it where now you can pick up exactly where you left off on your Xbox that you were playing on your PC. I believe this would be a title that might work with a cell phone too. Being as it's not as, from what I can see, it's not as graphically demanding as other platformers are. So therefore, you might be able to play it on your cell phone if you have them powerful enough, like say the S8 or the i7 or whatever. But you can also take your campaign wherever you left off and go right back to it on a different platform. And I think that's really innovative.
Yeah. Now, all right. Now, my next question is about mechanics. Ideal mechanics. Now, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mechanics is stuff like, for example, in Dark Souls, there's the poise system, which, allows you to not be staggered, depending on which, Dark Souls you're playing. And then, there's also crafting ones, such as, with Factorio, you place, like raw materials into a crafter, and what it does is it basically makes an item for you inside that crafter. Like, for example, you can take a copper plate and turn it into wire, or iron and copper wire and make a green circuit, a standard circuit. Now, what mechanic have you seen that you do like, and how do you think it could be more idealized?
Well, if let's start with if you look at Dark Souls 1, you've got number one. The greatest thing about Dark Souls is because there is no tutorial on how to play the game. Every time you play it, you may find a new mechanic. Game works. Like, for the longest time, I had no idea about backstabbing until one day I got into a PvP match, and just this guy came up from behind me, and I went to go quickly turn around, but it activated a backstab mechanic, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And it was just completely new to me, and it was like opening the magic treasure, cue Link, Legend of Zelda treasure chest music. But no, I mean, with that mechanic alone of just no tutorial and you learning how the game works on your own, that was an interesting mechanism of them immersing you into the game. And with Dark Souls itself, if you look across the three games, plus if you look at Bloodborne, and we'll even look at Demon Souls, every game new mechanics are introduced. Usually they're not like major game changing, although there were a few, such as with Bloodborne. The difference between Bloodborne and Dark Souls is the pace of play. Bloodborne, you can be a lot faster. Your movements are way more fluid. Just like with Dark Souls 3 is way more fluid and faster than Dark Souls 1 and 2. But in Dark Souls 3, you can still play the slow tank. You can still carry your shield, block, and all that. In Bloodborne, all of that's gone. Instead of having a shield, you're giving a firearm. I think there's like a crossbow thing you can have too. I'm not sure. I usually don't use the firearm mechanic except to like get an enemy off me real quick. But I mean, you've got the firearm in the left hand, you've got your primary weapon in the right hand. You can single wield the primary weapon however you want to do it. But the weapons also have different variations. Like one of my favorite weapons is one of the starting weapons, cane. And you can use this cane as just like a sword, or you can activate its ulterior alternative mode, and it becomes like a chain whip. And that alone is an interesting mechanic, and it adds to the fluidity of the gameplay. You're not allowed to block, so you're relying on parries, dodging, and attacks from a distance, or getting behind your enemy. Whereas in Dark Souls, you can literally lock onto that enemy, circle around them, and hold that shield up and beat them whenever they're attacking. You can parry or do whatever you want. But it's different across all three Dark Souls games. The base of the mechanics still works the same, but with the difference in the processing speed, the difference in the way that the weapons work and all that, and the overall speed of what your character moves, everything is different across the board. even though it's relatively the same mechanic, just kind of upgraded a little bit, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, but how would you improve it? Like, what aspect of it would you like to see improved?
Um, well, with Bloodborne, there is there's obviously a small issue. And that's primarily that some animations, even though they seem to go through, occasionally it will glitch through the enemy and they won't take any damage for it. Um, and I think that's just an issue with much like with Dark Souls 1 when you're in Blighttown. The whole area is just constantly lagging. It doesn't matter how powerful your system is. I believe that they developed that area to be like that. And overall, it's just a mechanic that over time I think can be improved upon. But as for any suggestions on how to work on it, I'm not really sure.
I'm talking
Obviously,
about
I'm
the,
not a
like,
developer.
aspect of, you were talking about how it doesn't have a tutorial, how
Oh, no, 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 no! Keep it that way.
well,
That
I
is one of the
understand
beauties
that.
of
What
the
I'm talking
Souls
about
series.
is like this whole thing that you've been going on about, how you fight with, the firearm and the sword or the shield and everything. Like, what aspect could you see improved in that?
Okay. Um, I think as far as like the Dark Souls games, introduce a more fluid gameplay, much like Bloodborne did. But as far as Bloodborne goes, maybe introduce a defensive tactic other than agility, because to be honest, some people who go from Dark Souls and straight into Bloodborne, like, oh well, I know how to play the game. Well, it says you don't, and it proves to you within a first you don't, unless you played Dark Souls like a character you would in Bloodborne, which I certainly did not. I was a sword and shield guy in Dark Souls, and now I'm a chain whip with pistol in Bloodborne. Um, but now that I play Dark Souls after playing Bloodborne, I've learned more combinations of attributes with weapon types, and based off those archetypes, um, let's just go with Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. I have a sword. The name of the sword is escaping me, but this sword bases its scale off of luck. So I went full dexterity and full luck on my new build, which obviously I didn't do it off the first playthrough because hell trying to go through that game with nothing but luck and dexterity. Um, but once you get to your second or third playthrough, you get the sword that you're looking, and you go to the fingers and change your attributes. Then you can change all that to 100% luck, 100% dex, and that build does so much critical damage that when you get into PvP, it's almost like a one-hit kill. But if you change what weapon you're using, that entire build breaks. And I laughed at it because the developers for a while actually nerfed that weapon to where it didn't scale as much. And I mean, it's still nowhere as near as it was as good as it was when it, but it has been nerfed a little less recently because now I can actually use that build again. And I've been going through my playthrough of Dark Souls and um absolutely loving it. I do plan on getting the DLC soon. I've been holding back on getting DLC for
Mm.
Dark Souls 3, but I do plan on getting the DLC at some point.
Well, for me, an ideal mechanic is, basically automation.
Hmm.
Like, for example, in like I talked about Factorio, you could put copper into a crafter and make copper wire and stuff like that, as well as making the circuit and all the different kinds of things. for me, you know, that right there is such a great way to do things. Like, for example, you could come up with, you know, like getting tons and tons of, you know, iron ore, taking it back to your base, and, you know, you could have one type of crafting system where you have to, you know, as like a very cheap way of doing it, manually, you know, insert the iron ore and, well, you know, any other fuel that you might need in order to properly, you know, craft it into the iron, you know, what's it called? Iron, like plates, iron bars. You know, you process it from iron ore into actual iron. And then, you know, there's like one way of doing it to where, you know, it doesn't take very much power to do that. And then whenever you look at automation a little bit further, you know, you could have it to where it automatically goes from iron ore, like have a system set up at your base, uses a lot of power, but it would automatically turn the iron ore into iron straight up, and then, you know, even have it to where it's even further set up to where you can go from iron ore to iron to steel to whatever. Like, you can make all these different things. And what I'm talking about is doing it in a 3D game. I mean, this is something that I would really like to see. I've always been a resource management type guy. It's, you know, one of my favorite things to do. I also do like combat, but I like being able to support the combat with the right type of logistics. And this right here is such a big part of what I love about, you know, games like Factorio, is you can, you know, just leave the leave the automation for, you know, all of the crafting that you need up to a series of machines if you set it up right. But
well, that's just like when we used to play Minecraft all the time back on Xbox 360 days, a long time ago. You used to do that with the was it the sand or the glass maker? You had some kind of automated computer machine that you had that it was glass, and it would drop the sand down, and you had a way of like cooking it or whatever, and it created glass and put it in a chest for you to inventory later. And I thought that was really neat that they had found a way to take a game where all you're doing is basically creating a pixelated world, and they found a way for you to automate it to where even if you're not in the game, it could still be helping you out, and you didn't have to constantly harvest and cook glass. It just did it on its own.
That's always nice, you know, being able to make stuff like that. And for me, you know, I really enjoy the, you know, ability to, you know, customize things. That's another part of it. But anyway, let's move on to customization. Customization, okay, you know, is really my thing. Like I like resource management. I like combat, and I like to provide for it with logistics. But in order to, you know, better make it efficient, you need customization. I am a real big tuner. Like, I like to tune things personally. Now, to what degree do you consider, you know, let's say we have a game with literally endless customization, to where you can basically customize all the way down to the molecular level. Let's say we could create a game like that. At what point do you think there is too much customization to where you get lost in it?
Well, honestly, I believe that
What I mean by that is basically
that's a really tough question.
I used to play World of Warcraft, and I got off for a while, and then I've always been a crafter in World of Warcraft. Like, I would have tanning and leather working on the same character, and I would go around, you know, harvest, you know, leather, and then make leather stuff, and then harvest leather, make leather stuff. And this ended up being that, you know, I would always, know what my particular crafting area was. But then, I stopped for a while, and then when I came back in, suddenly there's glyphs, there's like, all these different runes and everything you could have on your character. I mean, I think there was like 9 different fields of customization that you could, put on your character. And I
Hmm.
personally was like, man, this is a lot of customization. Like, it got to the point to where I didn't even know how to, even equip things at that point. And then there's also games that I've played in the past where the crafting system is very deep, and like I couldn't even find a tutorial on it, even though it was a several-year-old game, and you could actually, level up, certain weapons with random items that you found in the game. And thing is, it was so complex that nobody ever felt the need to, try and make a tutorial about it or any kind of information about it. I personally feel that that's like a little bit too much when no one wants to even, support it. Like,
Yeah.
and then, but as far as customization goes, like what do you feel would be too much, and how much do you like? At what point, whenever you have had customization in a game, what customization would you have liked to have seen in addition to what you saw in that game?
Well, let's go as far as narrowing it down further. Let's start with the topic of customizing character. Now, as far as character creation, I think you should be able to. The more customization for your character, the better. Great examples of this are the Sims game series. I mean, you can literally do anything with the character creation, and each game progresses that character creation even further. I mean, you've got hundreds of thousands of options for ways they dress, ways they look, their skin tones. You could even make an alien character. You can make death, anything. But another great example would be the Fallout series, especially Fallout 4. The character extensive depth and just so many options for features. But some games tend to see that, okay, well, here's a great game for character creation, but when we make a sequel, let's not really worry about that because obviously they're going to character. But let's look at Andromeda. Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 had great character customization. But, like I just said, they intended for you to import your character into the next game. So by that point, you're just kind of like, well, my Shepard's already there. But with Andromeda, you're playing a completely new character. But they had dumbed down the character customization so much that I didn't even care what my character looked like. I made like a goofy looking guy because there was nothing to it. I could not make my own character like I could with Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3 and create my own Shepard. And I think that that's what I liked about 1, 2, and 3 was that I could finally tune how I wanted that person to look, but I will give it on the hand of Fallout 4 and Andromeda. You're not creating one character, you're creating two. You're creating your significant other, or in Andromeda's case, your sister. And you're able to create both characters, and the design goes with it throughout the game. Now, granted, spoiler alert, Fallout 4, creating your spouse is kind of a wasted effort because you have played Fallout 4, correct, Troy?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I
Like
own
I
it.
said, spoiler alert. Your spouse dies. So whether you choose to be male or female, your significant other is dead within the first 20 minutes of the game. And you never see them again. So if you spent 2 to 3 hours creating both of your characters, you and your spouse, whichever one you choose to play as, You wasted all your time in creating the other one for a 5-minute sequence of you being married and going to the vault. Now that I was a little furious about, but I kind of laughed at it. It's, by the way, just saw Spider-Man Homecoming, and the feeling of disappointment is the exact same feeling you will get at the end credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming. That is all I've got to say about that, but you will get the exact same amount of disappointment.
Yeah,
But at least
I
you learn
haven't even,
patience.
I haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming myself. So yeah.
Yeah, that's why, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Is
just
you,
make sure you don't see anything else. 'Cause
you learn
have
patience,
spoiled
but you
things for me
also get a
before.
severe feeling of disappointment. And it's not about someone's death or anything. You'll understand when you watch the final scene of Spider-Man. So stay all the way through the credits.
So it's not about it that you're spoiling it still.
Well, no.
I'm just teasing.
It's
I'm just
nothing to do
teasing.
with that. Yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, for me, ideal customization. For me, I would like to be able to, like the customization of the character. Yeah, I like a good amount of customization on, your own character as far as how they look. But for me, customization, the main ideal for my customization is I like to be able to do something like control how much power. Let's say you have your own power suit. I would like to, control exactly how much power you allot for, whichever subsystems and stuff like that. Like, full functionality is where I love the customization to be, because I like to tune it. Like, for example, make it so that, I can switch it to marathon mode and I can run really fast for a really long time, or turn it to sprint mode where I basically go from I can shunpo from spot A to spot B, like I just immediately teleport almost. And then, also have it to where you can have, really powerful shields on it, like all different kinds of ways of, doing it. And I would like to be able to switch between these modes on the fly, like. That's more of a mechanic than a customization thing, but customization as a mechanic, like I would really like to be able to, if I have my own ship, I would like to, like if I'm building a ship, I would like to basically lay out the frame for it, and then I would like to place the modules, like for example the generator, the fuel, the engines on the framework itself, the inertial dampeners, the cockpit, everything. I would like to be able to place all of that myself, and there are voxel games that allow you to do some of that, but what I'm talking about doing is basically, make it so that you can drop, the engine, in the middle, and then have the reactor that, powers the engine. Make it so that you can actually have, like, under the walkways, the cables that power the rest of the boat, and then have like an entertainment area inside of your ship, and your cargo area, fill it, by hand, like the basically handling cargo the way that Star Citizen, is planning on handling cargo. Like, whenever they would fill their satellites in the past, they would have it to where as you add stock to it, you would have the physical cargo actually be placed there. And there is one thing that I find really cool is how, it actually has a modular, design to where you can just drop it into place. And then, even the ability to drop the bottom out of one of the ships. I remember seeing in a video where they dropped the bottom of the cargo bay out, and you would basically see like the floor of the cargo bay would go down, and there would be a vehicle there, and you'd be able to just drive out, do whatever, and then come back. Like, I would like to be able to design that kind of functionality into a ship myself. Like, I would actually be able to want to be able to design these things into these ships. Like, I would love to tune a ship from scratch to where you have to power everything and lay down the conduits and stuff like that. Like, I think that you should be able to do that. And then you could have like basic frameworks and everything.
Hmm.
and then maybe eventually be able to give people the ability to make their own frames. But things, if everybody could make their own frames, that would just add a level of complexity to it that I think would be too much personally. Now,
Okay.
what do you think would be too much customization in a video game yourself?
Well, like I said, as far as uh, character creation, I think that there is no such thing as too much creation. As long as your character survives, because obviously Fallout 4, bad, bad Fallout 4. But uh,
What
but
happened to
now
Fallout
as
4?
far as worlds go, I don't see um too much right now as a possibility. But I also don't think that developers should talk about constant, oh, this endless possibilities, because then we'll wind up with another broken promise of something like No Man's
No
Sky.
Man's Sky.
But
No
before
Man's Sky.
but before we elaborate on that, I don't know if you've noticed, but a good friend of mine, Ben, just joined the chat. And Ben, to catch you up on what we're talking about, we're doing a game theory little talk.
Theorycrafting.
And we're just talking about like mechanics and future things we want
Basically,
to
video game
see
ideals.
developers do. Yeah, video game ideals, what we would like to see developers for upcoming video games, and what we like about current video games that are out. So say hey, Ben.
Hello.
So Ben, quick
um
question. What do you think would be too much customization in a video game?
Hmm. I have to think about it.
Understandable. I'm right there with you. Like characters go, fine with it. Bring as much customization as you can. But when it comes to open world, like endless creation, make sure you can physically deliver that promise before you throw it out there.
I think the
Not
point that
saying
I'm
any
trying to make
names, No
here
Man's
is
Sky.
that there's no real too much customization. Like there is the level of customization that makes it hard on the developer. I think would be too much. Like for example, you'd be able to design the insides of a ship however you want, but making it to where you could also make the frameworks on how it appears on the outside. That'd be making too much work for the developer, because somebody could design a frame that somehow gives them a glitched reactor that you just cannot shoot whenever you're shooting at them, and stuff like that. And that right there would be just too much of a burden on the developer. And I think that whenever
I
it comes
ran
to
into that
something
a
like
lot in
that, you could
Fallout
just
4.
make it so that you could have certain classes and certain levels of frames that you could build on in order to make your ideal ship. But
I actually did that in Fallout 4. I created a fort around I want to say it was what was that settlement? Anyway, one of the settlements in Fallout 4, I built a wall around it. And it wouldn't let you put a wall on the bridge, but it would let you put a wall under the bridge. Well, these walls weren't destructible in Fallout 4, so I put a wall under the bridge, and literally it kept all forms of enemies out. It kept all forms of creatures out and whatnot. The only thing that could get past these walls were mole rats. And so that was the only issue I ever really had, was occasionally I'd have to kill some mole rats, but my town was completely safe because I could walk over this wall and walk through the bridge, but the enemies could not, because even though the wall was under the bridge, it showed as being there for them. It was an invisible wall for enemies and NPCs, but not for me.
Yeah, because doing something like that makes it so that it changes the difficulty of the game, and it ends up making it to where, in order to makes it so that the developer really doesn't care about it, because whenever you do something like that, it makes it so that you're missing out on the game instead of, what they have, implemented that they want you to feel for the game. You basically, the way they see it usually is that you're just hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And but whenever you deal with, glitches in a video game, like for example, there is the Warthog, or not Warthog, but Roadhog in Overwatch. He now has this new glitch where basically you spin, like whenever you hook somebody, and then you like basically turn up the sensitivity on your mouse up really high, and you basically just go back and forth, go wild. What happens is they made it so that instead of pulling you directly towards, Roadhog, what it does is it puts you in front of them, and because of the extreme increase in sensitivity, you could basically move it to the left, and then they try and move to the left to where the Roadhog's end destination is, and then keep moving it, and basically you can have an indefinite stun like that. That right there makes it to where nobody's having fun except for the person that's using the exploit. And then there's also like throughout the years, like there's been, like for example, in Rainbow Six, if you ever get a hold of the hostage while you have a shield on your back, and you turn up the sensitivity up really high, and you spin back and forth as you're moving towards the exfil for the hostage, what's going to happen is they can't shoot you, because if they shoot, either your shield's going to be there or the hostage is. And the hostage only needs to get hit once. And then once that hostage is hit, they go down, and then the other person just starts shooting you. And like even if there's 5 of you there, you could still end up killing the hostage really easily. And that right there is just another thing to where it's just an exploit. I really don't like exploits.
Yep. Well, but exploits at times can be one of my favorite exploits that we ever did was I'm not sure what map it was, but in Halo Reach, there was a map that I think it was one of the beta maps. I'm pretty sure it was one of the beta maps. But if you were playing the zombies game type, you'd go into this building and you could jump and spin on the door frame of the building on the inside, and you would glitch into the walls, and you'd be inside the building but in the actual frame of the building. And the zombie could get in there himself, but when you've got like 8 or 9 people who go up in that little area and they're with shotguns ready to go, that zombie never gets up there. But there have been ways that people have found out to kill people through the wall as zombies, but it wasn't as easy as it could have been. And that was a fun exploit, because then it became a challenge of, rather than cat seeks mouse, it became mouse seeks cat. And it kind of reversed the roles of the zombies not really being the hunters but the hunted, because they had to try to find a way to get in there, but they knew as soon as they'd get in there they'd die. So it was really just let's try to catch one real quick and take him out with us. But most of the time, mechanics like that, like exploits, not mechanics, but exploits, issues with the coding or whatever, they tend to cause the most issues. But I mean, it's
all right, moving on.
It's still
now.
cheating regardless. It's still
Yeah.
cheating regardless,
Yeah, I
because
am
it's
definitely
not
very
something the
against
developers
cheating.
intended.
I
But
personally would
occasionally
make it to where
exploits
if you glitch
do.
into something like that, you start taking damage. I would just have that happen.
And some games do that. I want to say Battlefield Bad Company 2 had an issue where if you glitched into certain areas, like sniping points, they actually started making them kill zones to where you'd start taking damage in those areas, because it was outside map technically. But some developers see exploits and sit there and say, well, that's not what we intended, but we like it enough to where this is now going to be a mechanic.
The bug becomes a feature.
Yes. The biggest example I can think of is with Quake rocket jumping. Look how many games utilize rocket.
Definitely Halo.
Yeah, definitely Halo, but it all started back in the day with Quake.
Yep.
And it was a glitch, but it turned into a feature for games of all sorts of genres.
Yeah, I hear that's the reason why they made it so that the rocket launcher had 2 shots.
Yes. So that you could fire off a jump and then also fire a shot at the enemy.
Yep. But let's move on to story. Like you always talk about the kind of story that you like to see, that you like it linear and everything. Now, as far as ideal stories go, tell us about your favorite story that you have dealt with in a video game. Don't go into spoilers and stuff like that. Just say what parts of it you enjoyed, and tell us what you would like to see as far as the story in the future. And you too, Bob.
My favorite story. Probably gonna have to be overall it's probably gonna have to be Dragon Age Origins. I mean, I've played that game hundreds of times, and I was anticipating the sequel so much by the end of the that when the sequel came out, I was disappointed, but I loved the story so much. I'll still play the sequel, even though they completely changed the mechanics of the game. And then the third sequel comes out, or second sequel, third game, and even further they changed the mechanics. And although they changed them to where I like the mechanics a little, this time they killed the story for me. And so as far as the series goes, the series has killed the story for me. But as far as the original story from Dragon Age Origins, you are this guy who is about to be inducted into a secret society of basically witchers. Instead of hunting monsters, you hunt darkspawn, which is essentially the same thing. Granted, I can see where it can be a Witcher ripoff, but it's so much more. But you go through this crazy ritual, you survive, you become the ultimate hunter of monsters, and you start your training. It's like being a Jedi and a Witcher at the same time, because you follow your master around. You learn how to become a Grey Warden, and I think I said Grey Bard originally, but anyway, you learn how to be a Grey Warden, and it all of a sudden shit hits the fan, and now you're in a war that you have no idea about. It throws you into the game. It teaches you a few mechanics, but it also leaves a few mechanics for you to, but it is completely open. You choose who you want to align. You choose who you want to have love relationships with. You choose who you want to be your enemies, minus one or two people who are set to be your enemy. And you choose where you want to go. You choose go to the final battle. It's so much, and it's in such a small little package, because even though when you look at the square footage of the world, it's actually really small, and some of the maps are actually repeated. It's just they change a couple details here and there so that you don't really notice them. But the way they did it was so fluid, and it just felt like this huge world, and you didn't mind the loading screens. You didn't mind seeing some repetitive stuff throughout the world. It felt good. And the biggest thing that I loved about it was it used just about the exact same combat mechanic style as the Knights of the Old Republic games, which is that you could do live combat, but you could also pause the combat, do strategic moves to get everything set up, and then resume combat and watch it unfold. And that's what I think they tried to bring back with the third game, but they brought the actual over-the-head real-time strategy element to it. And I like it, but I don't utilize it as much as I would have the pause combat and plan out your attack like with the older games.
Yeah,
However, the second game
the
went
whole
with the
Grey
route
Warden,
of Lord of the Rings.
like ritual thing, it reminded
Mhm.
me greatly of you know, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Sens, like Nanatsu no Taizai. It's basically you know, an anime, like a manga over in Japan, where basically you know, the demons have been wiped out and you know they're coming back. That particular you know, ritual reminded me of basically there's this faction that are basically the bad guys who drink demon blood in order to awaken powers, and that just reminded me of what they did. You know, whenever they, you know, would drink the demon blood, and either they would live, you know, and gain power, or they would die or mutate, and you know, lose their mind or something like that. That the Grey Warden thing just reminded me of that, basically, but. Like, based on how all of that storytelling goes, what kind of story would you like to see that you have not seen yet?
Now, don't shoot the messenger on this, but I honestly think that the Assassin's Creed route went a really good route. With Assassin's Creed, they did something that a lot of people didn't do, and they touched on religion. And when I first saw Assassin's Creed, I thought, well, this might be an interesting game because you're an assassin, you're in the middle of Jerusalem, you're killing people, and it's medieval times. But when I played it and I saw how much it focused on religion, I was like, this is kind of interesting. But I mean, being a Christian myself, not sitting here trying to say that everybody should be Christian or whatever. You believe what you want to believe, but I can see where it offends some people. I can see where it makes people happy, but it doesn't go as in sits there and blatantly says, okay, this is evil, that's evil. It shows corruption. Hey, Steve, we're doing a little game theory chat. Currently, we're talking about story. But with the Assassin's Creed games, I liked how they touched not in making it a full aspect of the game, but it drove the story, because here you have religious societies that are trying to reach an alternative goal, but they're utilizing the religion to back their goal, their objective, such as the Templars looking for mystical items of Christ and all that, like Moses's Ark of the Covenant, or the Holy Grail, etc., the Apple of Eden. And with those, I believe that I believe that a future game, if they came out with one, if it was a religious game, it might be decent decent to play. It depends on how they approach it. If they approach it as in like propaganda, then it probably wouldn't be as good. But if they approach it the way that Assassin's Creed did, by not making it the primary objective of the game or the primary drive behind the game, but kind of like a background noise, I think that would actually succeed pretty well.
And when you were talking about religious theming there, I'm sorry I'm cutting in here. When you're talking about Apples of Eden, I think one of the best overarching concepts about them being apples as an artifact in those games was that the Apple of Eden has always been the downfall of man. The apple was the one that Eve picked, and it was what would cause the downfall. So every time someone uses those apples, they're almost overwhelmed to abuse the power, which you actually see in I can't remember which game it was, where even Ezio himself starts becoming corrupted by it. Or not Ezio, but Altair. becomes corrupted by it toward the end of his reign as the head of the assassins, and actually hides it away again so he can't use it.
Yep. And I believe that I believe that's actually a good approach to do. Something that I saw that was really playing Assassin's Creed 2 is that well, with Assassin's Creed 1, you obviously saw the Templars, so you saw Christianity, you saw some Judaism in there, and you saw a bunch of Islam. But you also saw a new society that believed in, I don't want to say it's like a Hinduistic or a Buddhistic approach, but it's about self-fulfillment, self-alignment. And the assassins are all about making sure that you go through any means to better yourself, and also to help the world. So it's kind of like a selfless concept, but still being selfish at the same time, because you're kind of bettering yourself by bettering others, etc. Blah blah blah. But getting out of that chat, what I think is interesting is that when you play Assassin's Creed 2, you actually see other religions starting to come in. So now you've got the Holy Roman Catholics, you have the Protestants starting to show up here and there. You've also got a little bit of Islam still in it, but you now have a new faction in it that isn't in the game as story per se, but later shows up because, spoiler alert, most people should have played Assassin's Creed 2 by now, but at the very end, when the computer simulation lady comes forward and talks to not Ezio, but talks to Desmond himself
through the simulation, which was absolutely
which I believe it was
fantastic,
Mira.
by the way.
Which I believe
That
it
was
was
a
Mira.
twist.
That just threw in a brand new concept. And if you play further Assassin's Creed games, you can kind of see that it's tying into newer religions, such as Scientology and stuff like that. But it's also creating a new one on its own. But it is a complete different approach, because you went from a simple science fiction fantasy game about living through your ancestors' past to living through your ancestors' past, and a omniscient being is traveling through time and space to relay messages to you through your ancestors. And that was just literally, when you see that scene in the movie or in the game, almost like a movie, you literally took a backflip, and you I love the moment is because the screen goes black, and the moment you think, what the fuck, Desmond says, what the fuck?
Exactly.
And then it cuts off.
I love that.
It was such perfect setup. And that's what I love about story game, is because if you get a good screenwrite, if you get a good development team, and you get them collaborating properly and not clashing heads, and because games aren't like movies. Even though movies and games are built similarly, where they're built in pieces and then the pieces come together, with a movie it's usually the same people are building pieces, whereas with a video game it's hundreds of people building pieces.
Games have so many moving pieces, in fact, that a single director cannot lead the shot to shot. They cannot hold a single vision, like, for example, how, and I think he's incredible for this, Jackson held the vision for all of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies, or at least how they would proceed visually throughout the story. You can't do that in a game, because it's so many clashing concepts of, well, he's got to be able to interact with the environment, but also not fall through the environment into the sub-ocean. And he's got to be able to do things in the environment that are entertaining to the... which is fantastic.
Yeah. But one of the biggest examples I can think of is Gears 4, sorry.
Yes.
Because you actually see it. You watch the transition from a very Gears of War style game, and then all of a sudden it turns into kind of like a story driven archetype game where you're just sitting on a train or whatever, shooting stuff, doing button prompts and whatnot, and then it goes right back to the, like, you're watching the game play in pieces, and you can tell what parts were made by different people because it's not fluid.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think, Troy?
Well, I think that whenever it comes to my own personal favorite, story, it's Final Fantasy VII. Like, it's hands down, it is
Classic.
my favorite. Like, the like what I love about it is, you're basically this amnesiac guy that he doesn't know like what's going on, but he has like an idea of what kind of person he is, and he goes through the whole being hired as a mercenary, helping out his childhood friend, and then suddenly they're on the path to saving the world. That right there is my one of my favorite ways of one of my favorite kind of stories is you basically stumble upon something and you try and change things. Like you are given the ability to change things, and you fight the good fight. But as far as the what I didn't like about it was Aerith's death. That right there is always going to be something that I dislike, because I would like to be able to save her. Like thing is, using her as a usable character in order to like for example just basically using her as a pawn to make you feel the loss whenever she died. That was great. That was a great move story wise for back then. But I personally feel that in a story that I go through in the future, I would like the ability to, if I play well enough, that I can save somebody. Like, let's say this one person is supposed to die, but the thing is you can actually save them. Let's say there's a cinematic where basically you have several hundred people coming in from somewhere all at once, and they're going to try and kill this person that you're supposed to protect, and they're on the other side of a wall. Now, me personally, I would have like, if I know I'm going to be in a building, I would have brought, like, if it's a tactical game, like for example Siege, like Tom Clancy Siege, and you're supposed to be protecting this other person, and they end up on the other side of the wall. Of course, you're going to have something that you can breach walls with, or you could just fight your way over to where they are in order to like save them. Like, if you can fight off enough of the enemy, you can save them. Or like the ending of Reach. Do you remember the ending at Reach where basically you have to survive while killing as many of the elites as you can, right?
Which was fantastic ending. It felt very cinematic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thing
yeah.
is, though, I actually lasted. I lasted about 4 hours. The first time I played it, I lasted 4 hours. I just kept, like, I could tell my helmet was cracking, so I would just go into, like, armor lock, and then immediately come out, and kill him, and then, do it again, kill him, take cover, recover my shield, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I lasted 4 hours. I'm like, man, is there any end to this? And then I died, and then it showed that ending cinematic. Like,
Yeah.
I think that if you had lasted long enough, that it should give you an alternate storyline. I think, like stuff like if you played Far Cry 4, that in the beginning, if you just sat there for like 45 minutes, you suddenly get taken over to where the
And beat the game.
But yeah, you get taken to the very ending. Like, it's basically a speed run by playing it like that. You just sit there for 45 minutes, and then suddenly you're taken to put your mother's ashes to rest, instead of having to fight through everything and then getting to the last guy. But for me, like I like.
By the way, when y'all actually, how did y'all do the pagan men at the end? Like, did you kill him? Did you take him up on his offer? Did you not kill him, but decline his offer, and he fly off in his helicopter, what did you do?
Well, I basically just, put my mother's ashes to rest. That's all I did.
Okay, and what about you, Steve?
Well, I actually hadn't gotten a chance to play through Far Cry 4. I've watched a lot on it, but yeah, I moved away from consoles a little while ago, and my PC is in need of an upgrade.
I hear you. Well, as far as what I did with Pagan Men was I went up there peacefully with him. I declined his offer to join him, and so he gets in his helicopter and he flies off, and I proceed to pull out a rocket launcher and shoot the helicopter down. And I was giddy as a little schoolgirl when I found out that you could do. The game was over, because like when he's flying off in his helicopter, you're still able to walk around, but your weapon's put away and it starts like going into the letterbox format, and I was like, oh, it's a cutscene, I'm not going to be able to do anything. So I just pressed the Y button and surprisingly pulled out the rocket launcher, and I was like, well, let me see if I can shoot him. And I shot the helicopter, and sure enough, it blows up and he goes crashing down, and that's how I ended my Far Cry 4 playthrough.
Yeah, I knew that I could, because I went and pulled it out. I was like, I could probably shoot him, because I remembered, from Far Cry 3, you could choose the ending at the end, but I decided, I didn't come here to fight this guy or the horrible things he did. I just came there to take care of my mother, so I made sure I just walked in and did that immediately, and that's the only thing I did. And as far as the other two, characters that are in the game, I couldn't agree with either of them really. Like, they were both. The way that they did the story is that they made it to where you had to choose between extremes. Like, there isn't just extremes; there are shades of gray and compromise. Like, I would like to see. Like, the best way to put it is a story I would like to see is a game that doesn't show only extremes, to where you could like for example, like the lady was wanting to keep the heroin flowing, and also because they have the heroin flowing, have money to spend on schools and stuff. And then there's the place that has all of the drugs and everything. Oh, they have science books there. We could have used the science books. And like it's really was just very heavy-handed. Like, and then there's also the parts of games like that are using Aerith as the sacrificial pawn to move the story along. I mean, it's really good as far as a story goes, but it doesn't actually make it the kind of story that I would like to see in my own ideal of story making, because it's like this. Best way to put it is no concrete points. I mean, let's say you have a bomb about to go off, and there's no way you can possibly get to that bomb in time. It's not a concrete point, it's just a hard point storyline, because you're not within range to actually stop it from going off. Now, if you are in range and you're able to get up close to it and in order to, take it out, and then it turns out that, oh yeah, by the way, there's no way for you to go and, turn this off because we didn't include it, that becomes a concrete point. And then, let's say the whole storyline is based on, there is a, the whole thing starts just as, there's like a rip in the space-time continuum and monsters come out. That right there can be a concrete point. But, I just would like it so that you could have a storyline with hard points instead of concrete points, because a hard point, you could have it to where, like, you come upon a 500-man army invading a 30-man outpost, and, like, make it to where you could have the choice of, staying where you are and defeating the 500 soldiers so that you can save as many people as you can. And if you're good enough, you can do it. But then again, you're going to have to be very, very good to do this. And not die in the process. And, like, have no replays, basically, is the best way to do it. Like, I think that would be the best way to do it, to where if you die, defending this particular outpost, like you come back, like you have the ability to come back because you're like immortal or something. But the choice wouldn't be whether you live. The choice would be whether everyone else that is there live. Let's say you have a way to get some people out secretly, like save somebody. You get everybody else to sneak out while you delay the enemy, and then while you're delaying the enemy, they all get to safety. Or you could have the option to where everybody stays and fights because you want to keep the outpost. You can do that too. Like, make it to where these points in the storyline can be hard points instead of, concrete points, because there have been many, many times over the years I've played a game and they would make it to where, oh yeah, we send you an unlimited horde, to where you have to fall back in order to not die, or you lose. You just straight up lose. That right there is something I would like to see happen, like a story I would like to see, that they have hard points instead of concrete points.
I think I can even think of an example of where someone attempted to implement that, but right toward the end it borked up horribly. Mass Effect as a series, the fluidity in those games, and your choices and what they made. And now I will admit the voice options were very, blue, white, or red, but the concept is there, and I see where you're getting for until the ending came, but we won't talk about that here. That's a whole other can of worms.
Well, I personally don't think that there was any, hard points in that game. There were, options to where there was paths that you could take, forking. Like, for example, that one, really grizzled dude, from one of the, DLCs. I think it was Mass Effect 2. To where you could choose to either save the scientists or go after those guys. You could fork, and depending on which fork you chose, he would choose to trust you in the end, for the final battle and everything. Now, for me, thing is, I think that it should have been possible for a third option as a hard point, that you could save them while shooting him down. Like shooting those guys down, or somehow, while you're in the middle of saving them, you pull out a rocket launcher because you notice, there's a bridge between them and where they want to go, and you take out that bridge. It slows them down or just completely stops them, and then, you save everyone, and if you can save them in time and actually get over there, you could kill them in the process, or somehow shoot down or disable their vehicle so they couldn't get away. Make it a hard point instead of a fork, to where you have to choose between one or the other.
So full fluidity. You can have any option as long as you're able to work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
can have it to where you have two enemies, that they're enemies with each other, but you're allies with both of them. I would like to be able to have a way to stop them from killing each other. Like, for example, say, okay, I know y'all don't like each other, so how about this? You get the left side, you get the right side, I will get the center. That kind of thing. To where, for example, in Grand Theft Auto 5, what I did whenever I was presented with the final option was I decided to kill neither of them. I didn't even know it was an option at the time, and, I was like, you know what? I don't want to kill either of them. I'm just going to go into the final thing without killing anyone. And of course, this right here, I feel is the greatest example of a hard point, to where both sides are telling you, look, you have to go and kill Trevor, or look, you have to go and kill Michael. And depending on which one you kill, that's less enemies for you to worry about, as Franklin. And what I did was I just didn't kill anyone and went to the final mission, and I was like, oh yeah, it works. But then there was tons and tons of enemies, coming in, attacking us. Plus they were also attacking each other, but they were mainly attacking us. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm okay with this. Just wiped them out. And that right there is definitely, one of the things that I am definitely okay with. And then, another thing is they had a concrete point in Far Cry 4 where basically one of the people, you can't save them either way. Whether the only option is whether you kill them or they kill themselves. That right there is a concrete point that they die. Period. And that's just something I don't like. basically whenever you choose not to kill them, they just throw themselves off and, you know, kill themselves. I would like to have the ability to, you know, like, for example, in Mass Effect, you have the Paragon and Rebel, or whatever it is, reactions. Like, I would like to be able to just grab her and, like, throw her to the ground and, like, get her out of there. Personally,
Okay.
I just, that's the kind of thing that I would do. I would grab her and not let her kill herself. Now, I wouldn't want it to be as like a quick time kind of thing or like a reaction. I would like to be able to see her about to try and, you know, jump, and I would like to have the ability to grab things so that I could walk up, grab her, and pull her away from the edge, and have that be what moves the story forward. But I think we've spent quite a bit of time on story, so how about we go to the next, you know, one, which is going to be our final topic for the video today. Ideal end game. Now, for me, ideal end game, like, you know how the end game in Fallout 4, well, Fallout 3, let's start with Fallout 3. Like, in Fallout 3, if you beat the game and you didn't have a particular DLC, the game would end. Just straight up end. But once you got a certain DLC, it would allow you to play past the end, and you could actually play in the, you know, wasteland that you know, created. And then, you know, you have stuff like Factorio that doesn't really have much of an end game. Originally, it was you would just launch a rocket. And now it's to where you just launch a rocket to get 1,000, you know, signs of the space signs. And then, you know, whenever you go to stuff like, let me think, what's it called? Basically, think of the end game of all these different games that you've played. For example, Final Fantasy games. Once you've reached the end game, you're pretty much done. Because once you beat that final boss, the game ends, and the only thing you can do is go to a save that's before the end boss if you want to keep playing. Now, what I like in an ideal end game is to basically be able to play through the game, get to the end game, and have the end game basically be you just, you know, play. For me, I really like, you know, stuff like Factorio, where you can basically continue to, you know, expand, but it doesn't really have an initial end game in the beginning. Like, it's all end game. And then it's basically getting towards the end game, and then you're in the end game. But for Final Fantasy, I would like to be able to, you know, play past, you know, killing the big baddie and, you know, saving the world. You know, just grind and, you know, do stuff. Like,
I knew Tactics would allow you to do that.
What is it?
I think that was the only one. Final Fantasy Tactics. I knew that one would allow you to do that, but I think it was the only one.
Yeah, I think it was. But, you know, if you ever wanted to, you know, like, do stuff like fight, you know, like the Ultima guy, you know, all the different optional bosses, or the red weapon, you know, you had to go and actually find them before the end. But for me, you know, I just really, really enjoy, you know, an open end game. Like, I think that there's very important, like, for example, let's say you were playing Mass Effect and you hit the end game. It stops you there, doesn't it?
It depends on which one we're talking about.
Mass Effect 1 and 2 end right there. Mass Effect 3...
Well, no, you could go on after 2, but it would be like, now I get to do all the side missions. Hey.
Yeah, but it's always before the final mission. Like it always starts you back before.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I think Andromeda. Well, now I haven't beaten Andromeda. Pretty sure Andromeda you can keep playing through, from what I've heard.
And 3, as we all know, just ended like a hammer.
Yeah.
Choose a color. Choose.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with that.
Yeah, well, what I like is, I don't know if have you ever seen any of the stuff for Star Citizen yet?
Oh god, that game is going to be so huge.
Yeah, I like the end game, that kind of end game, to where, you know, you can have your own ship, and there's that, like, I actually talked about this earlier, but you weren't here yet. But thing is, like, it would, you know, have that one cargo area in the middle, you know, drop down, and there would be a vehicle in it that you could drive on the surface, and then you could basically park it back in. stuff like that. You know, it basically
Yeah, old-fashioned Mass Effect Space Rover style. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Now, for me, you know, what I like for my end game is I would like to be like as it stands. You know, you can buy your own ship. Like for example, in Eve, like you buy a ship and you have modules that you put into it, and depending on these modules, you know, you can have some degree of customization. But as I said earlier, but you weren't here, I would like to be able to build my own ship from scratch. Like basically come up with a frame, you know, that's a predetermined size and everything, and then inside of that, put, you know, like a reactor, an engine, all the different things, change how the, you know, way the shields work, the way the weapons work, stuff like that. You know, put on my own, you know, weapons on it. Like even basically, you know, do the conduits along the walkways. You know how in Star Wars, you know, they have the reactor, and then under the walkways you can see conduits that are down there, you know, connecting power to the whole ship. That kind of, you know, customization is what I want. You know, be able to actually, you know, do whatever I want in my own ship. But at the same time, you know, you can have like different size reactors, different power outputs, different engines, different everything. Like as long as it fits, you know, like I would like for it to work. Actually, I just realized there was one thing. There was one thing that I forgot to include in today's one item. So we'll go cover end game and then we'll come to the next topic. But what end game have you enjoyed? And what end game would you like to see in a video game?
I could tell you which one I hated the most.
Please do.
The end game I hated the most, Watch Dogs 1.
Which one?
Repeat that?
We're breaking up there.
Watch Dogs 1, the first Watch Dogs. The game had so much potential. And then when you beat the game, there's literally nothing to do. And the multiplayer was crap. It was fun for a little bit, but overall it was crap. But I mean, it just... If you want to know what not to do with an end game, look at Watch Dogs. At least the first one. I haven't finished the second one, so I don't know about the second one yet. But the second one looks more promising. So, but as far as the best end game for when you completed a game, I think that's been probably Dark Souls 3. Because you can either go back and just turn the game into a multiplayer game, just keep PvPing and wrecking people online, or you can become a scout, like you become this tour guide for and teach them how to get through the game and whatnot. Because what I love about Dark Souls 3 is, unlike every other Souls game, including Bloodborne, you're not restricted from joining people of way higher level. You are able to join them, but when they join your world, they go down to your level, at least skill. Now, they might still be able to one-hit all the enemies and whatnot, but it brings their level down to where they're able to at least have a decent challenge from your world, you being far level. And so you could basically become a tour guide. But if you want, you could always just click that New Game Plus or New Game Plus plus, or just infinitely keep making the game harder for yourself. And just keep going from there. And it's exponential what you can do with Dark Souls 3 as far as endgame goes.
Well, there's only one aspect of that I would like to improve. I'd like it to where, you know, you'd be able to keep your you know, games, your NG Plus slightly separate, to where you could go into NG Plus to grind and then go back into your like to your original game, you know, to just, you know, go around and just, you know, have fun. Just wreck everything you run into, like run into a dragon, just one-shot him with an arrow or something. You know, like I personally really like that kind of, you know, thing. Like that's the only thing that I would improve upon the end game in Dark Souls 3.
A return mechanic.
Okay.
But how about you? What kind of end game have you really enjoyed, and what kind of end game would you like to see?
Well, I will admit, I agree with Drew here because I would love Dark Souls 2 to death. But end games I'd love to see. I always did love the end games in Final Fantasy in a sense of, well, I know you couldn't go back, the absolute expanse of the game and feeling like you've achieved something when you completed it, and how grand a scale it always felt. Like, it feels like you're moving heaven and earth to save a planet. And I don't know why, but that was always the biggest one to me. I don't know, maybe I'm just, like, very classic when I'm thinking, I'm the hero to save the princess and save the world and help people, huzzah. But that was always the, I guess you could say, the capsule in which I enjoyed endgames. And endgames I'd like to see would be, that one's going to be a little more difficult. The world expanded, sort of taking your concept and my concept, where you save the world, but now there's a bigger threat almost immediately. So you've been playing this whole long game, and then you never realized this isn't the end. This is just the end of chapter 1.
So
yeah, basically, you play the whole game just
you
to
open
find
the
out
door
you're
and you
starting
see
it.
the new world expanded.
Yes! It's like, or it's like, I just activated the Tesseract, and now they think Earth is ready for a higher form of combat.
Yeah. You have only
Avengers.
touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, surprise!
Yes,
Sephiroth
that
wasn't
right
the final
there would be
boss.
perfect.
That was just the sun.
If they could properly implement that, that would be, oh my goodness, so good.
It's kind of the concept everybody was theorizing when, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate when I even bring the name of this game up. What was it? Not StarMade, I believe it was? No, not StarMade. Travel to the center of the galaxy, and it was literally nothing. Oh, Reset! Haha, have a good one.
Sky.
No Man's Sky. That's what I hoped it would be. Like, every time you think you've completed something, oh no, the universe just got bigger, and you just got in a lot more trouble. No, it's just collected stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, basically, like there's that meme that whenever watching E3, there are people who hug their reminder box, basically that No Man's Sky Super Legendary Edition.
Yeah. Let's remarket this thing 7 times. Totally.
Yeah. Whew, that right there was such a disappointment.
It hurt so hard.
Even the base building, I've actually played it since it came out. Even the base building is not as good as I was hoping it would be.
It's kind of pointless too, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Like for me, I would just like to be able to build my own base and be able to do all different kinds of things, and it just basically became a grind. Is all it really was. That's what it became, and then eventually you get to the center. Like I'm using quotation marks here, center of the universe. But I would like to be able to get to the edge of the universe as well. Like there's all different kinds of things I would love to do in the game. But anyway, yeah, that's end game stuff for me. An ideal end game is just like you said. You find out that you have an even bigger enemy, but that's only one thing. Another thing I would like is have an end game where basically your whole thing was to get rid of an oppressive regime, and then after you get rid of the oppressive regime, basically it's a game that has a very good career system built into it, and from there you basically just do whatever you want. For example, you could become a mercenary company or a mining conglomerate, build, have the systems in place where you could make these things. Or even if you make it so that these things, you make all of these things that's where you're not just, a mining company, but you also own a private military, and, you do protection work, or you basically become a tyrant and, rule everyone.
I have a game. I actually have a game that has that. Mount Blade Warband. It's not galactic, but it should be. The campaign for that game, you could do anything.
Yeah, Mountain Blade, and what gets me is that there was another game that was
Well,
supposed to be like that.
I was like
but
in my
it
head,
didn't
I was
work out
seeing,
as
you know,
well.
space stuff. You know, when
Oh,
I was
yes.
saying that.
Oh yes, that would be like such a grander scale.
Yeah.
Like,
What I'm saying is, I have a
if
But as far as
foundation
basically,
feudal
you know,
wise,
if that game existed, you know, I think I think I would, you know, like it would just blow my mind so much that I wouldn't be able to say anything for a few hours if I actually played it.
Just, I'm gonna lose myself in this like people lose themselves in The Sims. I'll be back in like a month.
Stellaris could
Months like
potentially
that's
go
small
that
scale.
route.
Like if this game
Yes!
actually existed,
Because
you wouldn't see me until the cops came to find me.
Stellaris, although Stellaris is not a universe, the galaxy you play in Stellaris is quite big, and it could literally take you days to traverse the entire galaxy in the game.
Before
Get
you have to
alone,
start worrying about
deal
everything
with
else
the
around
faction.
you.
But
Yeah.
it could exponentially be an infinite game because it does have factions that create themselves from nothingness in that game.
And then create splinter factions of
Yeah.
themselves that then
Yeah,
just
and
then
so
split their space in half.
you might conquer the and be sitting happy and pretty one day, and then all of a sudden, bam, this new faction just pops up, and then you're like, well, shit. I thought I beat the game. There was nothing else to do, and now all of a sudden this faction's rising to power, and they're actually pretty good.
Well, even then, when you think about it, then those other factions pop up, and suddenly you realize you're the fallen empire.
Yep.
Or like going from, you know, like Borderlands 1 to Borderlands 2, where suddenly you have Jack to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just one corporation anymore. It's like a conglomerate of the most powerful corporations under a single name in the galaxy.
Yep.
Good luck.
Anyway, let's go on to the next, you know, topic so we can end the video.
I actually got a topic for you real quick, Troy.
All right.
Ooh.
Now, what has been the most disappointing game, like a moment in a video game that literally killed the entire game for you? You didn't care to finish playing it.
Oh, I've got a list.
I don't know about that. Like, thing is, for me, if I play a game, I'm going to keep playing it usually. But hold on, there is this one game though. It's called Divinity 2.
Really, Original Sin, or
yeah, like Original Sin. Thing is, for me, it just was. I was playing it on my console, is the thing, and like, I just could not find my way around. Like, I would fight things and, you know, gain experience and stuff, and then like it had told me, you know, like.
Are you talking about the dungeon crawler Divinity, or are you talking the RPG one?
Divinity 2 Dungeon, like Original Sin, for Xbox 360. Now,
so the dungeon crawler. Okay.
I was told you were supposed to be able to have, like, you know, your own like citadel and everything, and fly around in it and do stuff. But suddenly here I am just trying to like force my way through an area, you know, without dying, in order to try and get to an area, but then find out that, oh yeah, there's nothing for you to do here. And like it got to where I just could not play it at all. And the thing is, like, after this next one, there's going to be one final point. But what about for you guys? We'll go on your topic, Drew, for now, and then after that, we'll go to the one topic I missed, and then final closing topic.
Okay. Well, for me, the one game that the moment I got to that point, now I had to fight to go back and play it because I was like, you know what, I got that far, finish the game. But I quit playing Far Cry 3 halfway through the game when Voss died. Because Voss was such a good villain. He is probably my favorite video game villain. And then they killed him, and it turned out he wasn't even the fucker you were looking for the whole time. And I was just so disappointed. I was so enraged. I said, I'm done with this. There's no way you can get me to come back and finish this story. And
it's like popping the Joker off in the middle of a Batman movie and then saying, oh, it's the Riddler the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
they built a, and I mean, look at the campaign they ran for Fallout 3, Far Cry 3.
Nothing but boss.
I mean,
F3
nothing but
game, huh?
boss.
all the commercials showed Voss. They even did a freaking web series with
Yes!
the actor that played Voss and Christopher Mintz-Plasse as.
That was a pretty penny.
I mean, that whole thing was hilarious, and just watching him torture Chris and watching him do all these crazy things, and they develop that character so much, and then they kill him halfway through the game, and you're just. It's why?
In the lamest way too, like that cookie cutter knife fight.
Oh yeah.
What
that
the
you're
crap?
on acid while you're fighting and shit like that, so you don't even know what really. Yeah, that was some bullshit, and I really was disappointed with that, because that game with that character alone used its potential and had so much more potential, and then it's like the writer came in one day and said, you know what, and rather than wait until I can come up with something to continue it, let's just say fuck it and just go ahead and kill them off. But
And
they
the
had
worst-
so much with Voss.
As another example, it was like as if halfway through the Batman movie, they kill the Joker off, and it's the Riddler the whole time. But the way they kill the Joker off is also him walking across the street, monologuing at Batman while Batman's like down, and then he just gets hit by a bus, like in Mean Girls.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that
Well,
would be.
that was at the
is
end.
this?
though,
Well,
and
honestly-
I think they
honestly,
said that
if you
she
look
was
at-
fine.
If you look at the way they killed the Joker in Arkham, he's in the middle of fighting Batman, and all of a sudden, Batman goes to give him the serum after drinking his portion,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
Joker jumps on him, and then he drops the serum, and now Joker dies. I'm like, that is the worst way to kill the Joker, because
We knew he wanted to
it's
retire.
not funny. It's
We
not
knew
funny,
he
and
did.
they
Yeah.
meant for it to be a funny scene, and it's not funny. And it's the exact same thing with Far Cry 3. They killed Voss because they figured it was a good point to kill him, and that it would be kind of funny to see the way the players looked when he died, so that they could sit there and introduce the real villain. And I'm like, no, it's not funny. You
Who
killed
wasn't
the
even
best
that
fucking character in your
interesting?
game. Yeah, you killed the best character in your game, and now I don't want to play your game anymore.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving,
All right.
moving on. I could go all day about Voss.
Yeah. As far as this is the topic that I missed earlier. This is actually something that means a lot to me, because like if I ever make my own game, this is something I would like to see in it. It's deployables. Whenever you pick up something out of a vehicle, you take it somewhere, you deploy it. Like for example, a machine gun, deployment. You basically attach it to the thing, and it's mounted there, and it makes it into a defendable position. You can do this with drills, all different kinds of things. Now, I would like to classify these real quick. There's going to be the personal deployables, basically your own personal equipment that you bring with you whenever you go into things. And, like let's say, for example, it's, a fuel condenser or something small that you could use to process ore, and you pull fuel out of it, stuff like that. And then there's going to be also the community kind of thing. Like basically, this is going to be a game that's going to be like a multiplayer game, up to 6 people playing in the same game. You load up a spaceship, and you know that you're going to be drilling when you get down there, so you load up the drill, you load up the power, the different ways of powering it. Like for example, you can have reactors that take fuel, or you can have solar panels that power it, or you can have like radar, recon, all different kind, like everything you can possibly think of, for going down to a planet you've never been to before. And you can all, like, basically the community type deployables are basically things towards the end game, like tools and everything. And then the personal deployments, basically the best way to think of a personal deployable is like bringing your own chair to the beach, that kind of thing. And then you can have that basically be your own portable shield that you can put on the ground in front of you. And then whenever it comes to community deployables, basically everybody gets together and they pull this thing out of the back of it, and everybody grabs a piece of it, and they take it to the location that you're going to, and they hook it all up, and it all works. And then whenever everyone's done, you can basically load it up and take it away. Like, you could even leave something behind. Like, let's say there's a solar panel, and like there's too many enemies between you and that solar panel, so you're like, okay, we can just leave the solar panel, and you just don't have the solar panel. Whenever you get back, you can just craft it and add it to the deployable later. And like the whole thing is, being able to have added utility from an external piece of equipment on top of whatever you customize to be inside of your own, like power armor, exoskeleton, your own vehicle, stuff like that. So what do y'all think about that? What kind of deployables would you like to see? Personal and like a community type deployable. I'm not even using the right word here, but basically a communal deployable where basically you and your entire team, like your friends, can use. Like, what kind of deployables would you like to see? What kind of modules would you like to be able to add to it, and so on and so forth?
Well, as far as like what kinds for future, I honestly can't think of any, because it depends on the type of game.
Well, I might be able to set you on the right track here, Drew.
Yeah,
because when he was talking about it, I was seeing the concept of, like, if you could imagine sort of a Mad Max world where you're driving around everywhere and you have all these deployables in the back of the vehicle. And the first thought when he was talking about all these different deployables and all your friends picking up these deployables and setting them up, mobile base, a deployable base that you have to put down every once in a while to collect energy and to mine for more fuel so you can keep going, because the black oil is the lifeblood of the wasteland, and salts for trading, and gold and other resources you could use, and just like a center of operations depending on what you want to do. We're raiders, so our center of operations is a defensive position and a place to refuel our very tiny, angry vehicles that go out and raid the wasteland, or solar panels. Solar panels is a great option, because in a world where gasoline is fickle, move to electric.
Yeah. Like I said, it'd have to be for a certain game type. Like for some shooters, I could see it like one of the greatest examples I think of shooter wise is probably going to be the Gears of War saga. Because, or excuse me, not Gears of War. I mean, there are some deployables you can do in Gears of War, but let me rephrase that. You have Halo, because in Gears of War, the deployables are primarily on defense. You don't really get the Troika turrets, and that's it. But Halo, like you've got deployables that you can throw out that you can give somebody. Like you could have a shield that everybody can stand under, or you could turn invisible yourself. You could have a booster, all sorts of stuff, but it's things that you can pick up and change out. Although I believe Reach was the only...
Those are more, like a module that you can put into your own suit. That is where I see that. Like, let's say you got a bubble shield, you drop the bubble shield, sure, you deploy it, but the thing is, it's more of a, personal module to where you drop it in place and you move over here and then it recharges and then you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. It basically becomes like an infinitely spawnable thing. Like, what I'm talking about deployable is, you set up like a bubble shield and it just stays there until you pick it up, and then you can recharge it, while you have it in your hand. Like, it has to be its own physical thing, not an ability that you just drop in place.
Okay.
Well, I'll always fall back on my TF2 roots and go sentry turret.
Yeah.
I love stepping up them sentries.
Yes, exactly. That would definitely be a one heck of a person. You can personalize it.
Yes.
But yeah, you can make it to where it uses, lots of, like, you can have a minigun on it and it fires tons of really small rounds, for DPS, or, it's basically a cannon to where it takes a shot, and it takes a shot, and then it takes a shot for all kinds of high damage there. You can set it to where it has rockets, mortars, anything really. And have
highly accurate sniper rifles.
Yes,
Mhm.
there you go too. But you know, like you have to make sure that of course can't make the targeting too overpowered because you know that would just make it to where no one wants to play. Everybody would have
Yeah,
a sniper
'cause-
rifle, you know, turrets, you know, like 50 of them, you know, on top of a hill, and you know you can't approach it. You just can't approach it.
Yeah.
Well, sniper
A
rifle
good game that has deployable would be Helldiver. They utilize
Yes.
deployable really well.
Oh, Helldivers is a great example here. The turrets, the
I love District 9. I don't know if you guys played that particular multiplayer game. There was this game called District 9.
Wasn't aware that they had a District 9 video game.
Well, yeah.
Oh no,
not
it
District
goes
9,
under a different name than it's not related to the giant monster thing.
Yeah. Thing is, it was basically a game that was it was before the movie. It was long before the movie, long time ago. Basically, you would be able to drop a supply depot, which would, you know, heal you, give you ammo and stuff like that. You could walk up to it, change your loadout. You could also drop an AA anti-air, you know, deployable. You know, that would, you know, basically defend your area to where from anybody doing any airdrops in your area. You could like everybody could drop one, and then there would also be some on the base, and then you could also drop a you know, radar. You had deployable jammers. Like this game was a whole lot of fun because you know you had this kind of customizability, and I'll come back to this game the next time we do a theory crafting. But thing is, you'd be able to drop all different kinds of things, like for example a rocket turret, a gun turret. But you wouldn't be able to customize the turrets or the vehicles or anything. But you'd be able to customize your own character. You know, give him, you know, special anti aircraft basically armor to where you'd be able to get through the whole thing. And I would actually use that as an anti-aircraft loadout to where I would basically drop in directly on top of the anti-aircraft and basically damage it by landing directly on top of it. And you know,
That sounds like Helldivers.
well, it is similar to that. It is similar to that. I can tell you that much. This was an arcade game on Xbox 360 that went under, and I have heavily researched to see who owns it now, because I would love to see a more modern version of that game come out, because that game was huge. People loved to play it. Then some other game came out, and like I think it was like a COD game, and everybody just moved over to that because you know they wanted to play that. And I actually got DLC for the game, but that was after that other game came out, and the game just died because everybody that wanted to play it, you know, went over to that other thing. Plus, some people figured out some exploits and would basically snipe people in midair, you know, with their sniper rifles, and it was just not fun after that. So, huh?
Oh no, I was like cringing when I hear the word exploit. It hurts my soul.
Yes.
It hurts.
I personally hate exploits so much. Like for example, Roadhog's, you know, spin hook. I don't know if you heard about that yet.
Yeah. The only good news is that they put his damage through the fort, so it's very hard for him to kill people now.
Well, that's the thing. Like if you turn up his sensitivity up really high, he'll hook you and start spinning in place. And because you basically the way the hook works
Give me
now
just a second,
it tries
fellas.
to
I
put
have
you
to
in
go get
front
my...
of Roadhog.
Right,
Now, if you're spinning back and forth, you can be indefinitely hooked.
Yeah, because you never land.
Yes. And that right there is something I don't like.
And the thing is that they keep addressing the hook as something that needs buffs, and the shotgun that needs a nerf, when it's a reverse. The shotgun needs the buff, so it's at least like it was when it was at start, and you need to nerf the way that hook works. It's land
I think the best
where
way
the
to
hook
do it
started.
I think the best way to, you know, make the hook work is make it so that it goes towards the front of Roadhog, but as soon as the two heroes touch, it disconnects. Right then, like as soon as they touch, it disconnects. Right then.
Okay. Well, it's that or do the same thing Nautilus had in League of Legends for the longest time, where there's a starting point. Well, the nerf for it would be you're rooted when you throw the hook. You can't move. So you're aiming this thing, you make the hit block smaller on that hook because that's ridiculous. And then when you throw the hook and it hits the target, the person ends up where the hook started from, because he's latched in place. So even if he hooks you and can immediately start moving, you stop wherever that hook originally came from, which would be a
that's the
pseudo
thing.
nerf.
That's how it used to be. You would basically go directly towards Warthog, and you know, that right there, it's to where that right there allows not much, you know, ways of, you know, being able to play with it. That's the reason why they put the end destination to be towards the front of Roadhog. But as long as they made it to where now, if whenever you get hooked and you're pulled towards him, that you, whenever you like impact with him, that what it does is it, you know, releases you then. That right there, I think, would fix the whole thing. Like,
essentially, they need to address having a cutoff instead of it just going on forever until he matches up front. I agree.
Yeah, that right there would completely fix it.
Yes.
But let's move on to the well, first off, you know, we've already talked about deployables and everything. Now, this is the final topic of this video. It is, what does all of these, you know, subjects, which I'm going to relist them, mean for replayability? Now, the whole topic for the video is video game ideals, and the ideals in this game are genre, mechanics, combat, customization, story, end game, and that final topic was deployables. What does all of this mean for replayability?
Well, I would always like to say that deployables leads usually into the kit or the design of like how you want to play, which could lead into replayability, of course, because it's like, this time I wanted to be an assassin, next time I want to have the deployables and set up to do tank, and then mage, or
basically, you know, like you can turtle, or you can, you know, do utility, or you can, you know, do mobility, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, which could allow you to approach the game from a dozen different angles, which is always great for replayability. And also the expanded ending, just always have an ending that goes on for a while, would obviously always help for replayability, because that's probably going to have multiple approaches as well.
Oh, about that, like the one of the times that, like, I remember now, you said that, like, that one story thing that would made me quit the game. There is one other game, Red Dead Redemption. When they killed the father and made you play as the son, I
believe
quit.
it or not, have not played Red Dead Redemption.
Same.
Oh. And then, you know, on top of that, Fable, whenever they suddenly went from 130 days to 0 days left, like, I thought I had time. Like, it didn't tell you how many, like, how many things you could do before the final end. Like, I was going to farm everything. I had bought everything that I needed. I was just, you know, trying to make it so that I could get to where I'd know exactly how much money I would need. And then, you know, I tried to go to the next day, you know, trying to see exactly what the next stage was. Suddenly it went from 130 days left to 0 days left, and I was over 50 million
the darkness
in debt.
jump, yeah. Because the storm showed up early. I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Those two right there made me completely quit the game. I don't even care that it's free on my system, because I actually have a 360, and I had the gold whenever you know, it became free. I don't even play it still, even though it's free, even though it was free.
I mean, Fable 3 was alright, but well, I wouldn't say it's the best.
That ending just, you know, completely killed it for me.
I had to exploit to actually get there, because I wanted to see the good ending. And you needed so much money.
Well, you know, I would have been fine, you know, just leaving for a bit, and then coming back and, you know, collecting money, then, you know, studying for a bit, collecting money, doing this, collecting money, doing that, collecting money. I'd already done it for a little bit. I had already made, you know, a few million, you know, towards getting out of debt. But then, you know, I just made the mistake of, at 130 days, thinking that, you know, they should have, you know, a final stop, you know, the day before the whole thing would happen. And, you know, be able to just make all the money that day, and then, you know, the next day, then you would have to deal with it. But, you know, they didn't do that. They decided not to tell you at what point you would, like, the next time you did it, like, it would be at the day. And that right there just killed the game for me. And then on top of that, you know, what really angered me was the time that I played Red Dead Redemption, and like I have like the best way to put it is, at the end whenever you go to shoot everyone, this is yet another point on my story thing to where they have concrete points to where they definitely kill him versus hard points to where if you do it right, you can live, because I had the machine pistol, the gun in the game that had 13 rounds.
Yeah.
And like this was actually my first playthrough. I got to be very, very good at playing against this, and like doing the shootout thing, and then like doing the marks. What I did was I did 13 headshots, and it wasn't enough. Like I killed 13 of them. There was only 5 guys left, and I had it after that. Like I knew I was about to switch to my combat shotgun. That semi-auto shotgun that you got. And I was going to switch to that and just take the rest of them out. I do that, and then suddenly I'm dead before I can even pull out the shotgun, even though 13 of them are dead and there's only 5 of them left.
That sounds cheap. Ugh.
Yeah, it made me so angry. Like, I did it just right to where I would have definitely lived. I had fought, like, 8 different guys shooting at me at the same time, and I was able to dodge to the side, switch to my shotgun, and take some of them out, dodge to the side, just finish up, and, I guess Drew's gone for now.
No, he had a storm surge. Don't worry about it. He'll be back in just a sec.
All right, I'll just try and, draw this out then, but, like that, it just made me so angry. I mean, like, yeah, they allow you to kill the guy that killed your father later on, and like that right there it's them attempting to make up for it, but there's nothing they can do to make up for killing the guy. Like
it's hard to reconcile a change like that. I agree.
Yeah, like after that, I played through the stranger thing to where I could get to the guy and kill him, just cause. And then after that, like I just didn't want, like if I had the time and the compunction to, what I would have done was played through the game until the point that before they would kill him, and then just do open world as him and not finish the game. Like if I had known that they were going to kill him, I would have done that instead. And then Fable, definitely improve it by like having it so that the game goes up to the what's it called? Like the day before, and then say, okay, if you do it again, if you try and skip time again, the next time like it will be during the attack. Like if they had said that, I'll be like, okay, I know this is the point at which I have to have all of the money, so I'm going to do this now. Like that's what I would have done.
Warning. That's all you really asked for. Warning.
Yes, just a warning. Just let me know when the next time I would skip time that it would screw me over. Just that. That's all I would need. And everybody would be super happy and everybody would be saved. Like that right there would have been perfect. And then, on top of that, I don't know if you remember from Fable 1, whenever you got to that one side of the map that, was like super exclusive, and then there was that really expensive, like area to where you could get the Dragon Slayer blade. You remember that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like, have some more like high level equipment like that. Like
so you could handle things a little bit better. Yeah. I agree.
Well, I'm not talking about like powerful. I'm talking about like high end equipment. That's where if you have the money, you can buy it. That's like another thing that I would like to see in a game, is to where an exponential increase in the cost of like different weapons, and also an exponential increase in materials, but it's cheaper to get the materials and make your own weapon. Like that right there is something I would love to see in a game. Like I would try and date that game.
That's a little unhealthy. Don't go near the hole in the middle. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
But yeah, the thing is, yeah, it's just really what I would just love a game like that. It would be so awesome. Be able to, like I am a tuner at heart. Like I love tuning things in a game. Like for example, I don't know if you play League of Legends, but
I did for a while, yes.
yeah, you know the masteries, right?
Yes.
Like imagine being able to have a game with masteries, but instead of preset masteries, you could design your own. Imagine being able to play a game like that.
I could imagine. I imagine it, but at the same time, I do also cringe because the single word that yet again will slip in with other players: exploits.
Well, if you design it right, there would be no exploit. Like people could call it an exploit, but if it's the way that the game is intended to be played, to where whenever you do damage, you gain a shield, and then you basically, you and this other guy that's like he's a DPS, but he doesn't have that shield. That as he deals damage, he gains a shield. So that as you're fighting, basically you do more damage to him, even though he does a lot more damage than you. You're doing more damage to him because he's not getting that shield. And then they get mad. They're like, "Oh, that's an exploit," but no, that's actually what the game designed into it. That what he got from that extra damage, you ended up getting the foil to it by having a shield. That while you have that shield, you reduce physical damage by this flat rate, and that meant that you actually got more damage in than he did.
Well, it depends. See, I've learned that while customizability is amazing.
Well, the thing is though, we're not talking about League specifically. I'm talking about a game removed from League that actually has both flat and percentage reduction in video games. That just goes into a whole other dream game kind of video for me. But yeah, the thing is though, I'm over 2 hours now, so we're gonna have to end this video now because otherwise no one's gonna watch my video. Oh, Drew, you're back!
Just in time. No.
Yes. Okay. Final topic. What does all of the things that we have discussed today mean for replayability? What about you, Drew?
Honestly, just about everything. The deployability doesn't really key into it as much for me, but as far as design, story, mechanics, and overall fluidity of a game, as long as you have most of those key factors, if not all of them, you should have
a valuable amount of replayability, you'd say?
Only one game I can ever think of that had all those things but still failed in the end was Halo Reach.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because the story was already established. If you're a fan of the books, the story was already there. It was already there. There was nothing missing.
There were no Spartans on Reach when it fell.
Well,
they were in orbit.
The ones that were there weren't there. Because the ones that were on the ground died.
There were a total of 13 Spartans, and they were all in orbit.
Yep. But see, what doesn't get me is, I mean, it made no sense. Why would you take a great story like that and then just completely change it?
Oh, no. Halo 5, as we're aware right now, they basically went off the reservation when Microsoft and Bungie split the game, but then came back together, and then they bought Bungie and it 343, and basically Microsoft put their greedy fingers in everything and went, "Hey, we're gonna change everything. All those books you wrote just didn't happen in the games."
Yep.
All those amazing books that brought a lot of people into Halo and established the lore for a lot of people who were already in Halo just didn't happen.
Oh, by the way, what I would like to see is a game where you can actually have your own ring world. Like that, I think that would be cool. Like, like on the rings, to where you could look around and you could see the ring, but you couldn't go there. Like, I would like to be able to actually go there as part of an open world game.
Okay. I can see that.
Osiris might have that capability. Osiris is essentially what No Man's Sky promised to be. It's just Osiris is so far behind in development that there's only 2 planets on the entirety of the game.
Yeah, but that's because they're actually taking the time to develop it, unlike
Exactly.
No Man's Sky, because this is a
Exactly.
big game. The concept is huge. When they announced No Man's Sky, the people who actually believed they could do it believed that they had actually secretly been developing it all the way up until this point. We have been developing this generation system for years to make this work, and now we're unveiling it because we didn't want to get people hyped and then find out the engine doesn't work, or it's 10 years out.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind the 10 years part, long as it worked.
Yeah,
I'd
at
just
the
buy it
same
when
time,
comes out.
yeah. Let's just hope. Cross your fingers, kids. Osiris.
Isn't that the same pitch they did with Destiny?
It is. Oh.
Here's a game, but it won't be done for 10 years. But
It's
you
done
can
when
go
it's
ahead and
done.
play it.
We're gonna change it like 12 times. It's done when it's done. Also, not Half-Life 3, but the other one that people were hyping up and then turned into Overwatch. The remaining assets got turned into Overwatch.
Battleborn?
Yes. Oh man. Or Project Titan. I think they were calling it in
what doesn't make
development.
sense? What doesn't make
Yeah.
sense is how the hell does the remaining assets become a better fucking game
The
than the
Mighty
original
Nine or
concept?
something like that?
Woo! They worked really hard on the assets.
Well, anyway, you're talking about Anthem. You're talking about Anthem and Andromeda.
Huh? Am I?
Huh?
Yeah, the thing is, like, Mass Effect Andromeda complained that the people who, put the things in the Anthem, that you took all the things that we worked on, what that we wanted to do, and you put it into that instead.
You mean, I think I see what you're talking about. Because I'm looking at it right now, just trying to get an idea. Because I lost you there for a second, that's all. The Anthem controversy with Andromeda, where they actually think Andromeda stole some of the assets from Anthem before Anthem got finished.
No, it was that Andromeda, like as far as I read, that Andromeda was saying the reason why they've received such bad, reviews and like people saying that they didn't like, how the game played and everything was because Anthem took, some of Andromeda's resources whenever the
Oh, it's
people
reversed.
transferred from, Andromeda over to Anthem.
Oh, it's the reverse. Okay, I see.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you like this really, really extremely long conversation, which is only supposed to be 45 minutes in the beginning, then like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't like it, oh well. I'll see you next time. Bye.
And also, don't forget to pop by Apocalyptic Gaming Crew on YouTube and check out our Twitch. And
Yes,
if
those
you
guys
feel
do.
free, send us a message, and we may just invite you to play a game.
We'll be there.
And thanks for having us, Troy.
All right,
It
no
was great,
problem.
man.
Peace.
Have a good one, man.
Bye.